More NBA free agency to talk about, more politics to get into, but damn it, you know what's on my mind more than anything else? O.J. Simpson. BET Awards. Really? Really? Stephen A. Smith Show coming your way. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you at the very least 3 days a week over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. As always, I want to take a moment to show my gratitude to my subscribers and followers that have now eclipsed more than 716,000. Appreciate the love. Keep it coming, and I'm going to keep on coming. And let me not forget iHeartRadio. In the last 2.5 to 3 months, there's been over 1.2 million downloads on iHeart Radio. So I can't thank y'all enough for the support. The show continues to grow and grow and grow. It's shining more and more every day. Can't thank y'all for the love and support. Keep it coming, and I'm going to keep on coming, all right? To make sure you want to continue to like the show and what have you, just click the bell to get notified of all of our new content, and you too shall be the latest member of the Stephen A. Smith Show family. And while you're at it, don't forget to pick up a copy of my New York Times best-selling book, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes, now in paperback, by the way. Just go to straightshooterbook.com. Once again, that's straightshooterbook.com to get yourself a copy. Let me get right to it, because yesterday I was talking about NBA free agency. Paul George going to Philadelphia, Klay Thompson going to the Dallas Mavericks, CP3 going to the San Antonio Spurs. We'll be talking about Jayson Tatum a little bit later on in the show, because he's the new $300 million man. We'll talk about what he deserves, whether or not he truly deserves that, and what that means for the rest of the NBA moving forward, not to mention the Lakers and all of this other stuff that's going on. But on my mind right now is something I could have easily touched on yesterday. But, you know, I hadn't seen all of the BET Awards. But I saw it last night, and I'm going to get started with that, because this past weekend, the BET Awards, something we look forward to, something that's been a ratings bonanza, give credit where credit is due. This is a celebration, supposedly a celebration of black culture, music, and philanthropy. Yesterday, we talked about Will Smith's performance. Remember that? Usher's Lifetime Achievement Award and subsequent speech. Remember that? Well, today, somehow, some way, I've got to talk about something else I noticed that caught my eye. And I'm sure y'all saw it, and if you didn't see it, I wouldn't encourage you to go back and see it, because I'm pretty pissed off about it. Did y'all see the In Memoriam segment paying tribute to, quote, black excellence in terms of that we unfortunately lost this year, the individuals that we lost? The tribute included nods to luminaries like Clarence Avant, Willie Mays, Lou Gossett Jr., Dexter Scott King, just to name a few, okay? However, there was a notable silence from the crowd when the image of O.J. Simpson appeared on the big screen. You may recall O.J. Simpson died this past April after a battle with cancer. Yes, he is known for being a Hall of Famer on the football field, out of USC and ultimately with the Buffalo Bills in his NFL career, but he was also accused of double murder. His ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and Ronald Goldman, back in 1994, the 30-year anniversary was just the other day, last month, June 12th to be exact. O.J. was acquitted of those charges in 1995, but later found liable for their deaths a few years later in a civil trial. And the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman obviously criticized the BET Awards for paying tribute to Simpson. As well they should. I don't blame them one bit. And I'm going to say this to y'all. What's up? What's up? See, Jesse Collins Production Company, same man that produced the Super Bowl halftime show. Phenomenal producer. Produced the BET Awards, okay? Constance Orlando, an executive VP, no doubt she was involved as an executive VP for BET. Scott Mills, he runs BET as well. Has been doing an exceptional job. I'm not here to cast any aspersions on them as individuals and the wonderful, wonderful work that they've done over the years. Let me be very, very clear. It's not for me to judge. Their body of work speaks for itself. I'm just talking about this one thing. And, you know, you got Tia Mowry up there. She's giving an introduction, paying tribute to all of this. And then OJ's face pops up on the screen and you could hear the audience aghast. Clearly, everyone didn't approve of that. Clearly, most people were shocked by that, and they should be. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to call it like we see it. In the eyes of most people, regardless of an acquittal, O.J. Simpson is a double murderer. Yes, he ultimately was convicted in a civil trial and obliged to pay $33.5 million to the Goldman family, which he never really did till the day he died. Never happened. But we all viewed him as a double murderer. He was ostracized and considered a pariah by the vast majority of American citizens. Why? Because regardless of what people want us to believe, unlike most situations, unfortunately, we saw the trial. And yeah, the glove didn't fit, so you must have quit. And the late, great Johnny Cochran pulled that off. And I've had Carl Douglas, the famed attorney working on Johnny Cochran's team during the OJ trial, on this show on a few occasions. And he talked about the preponderance of evidence that validated a civil suit against O.J. Simpson, but not necessarily a criminal suit, because there were holes in the argument that were left by the LAPD and beyond, basically going out of their way to ensure that a person that was guilty in their eyes would be convicted, and it backfired on them. We know that story. But in the end, Nicole Brown Simpson is gone. Ronald Goldman is gone. The Brown family, is still around. The Goldman family, Fred Goldman, who I've always had a strong level of sympathy for, is still around. And you're O.J. Simpson. I know this is not popular to say. And two of my boys, because I love Mace and I love Cameron, and I know what respect they have for O.J. I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody like that. They have their relationship with them, and that's their business. More power to them. My attitude is this. O.J. Simpson never gave a shit about black people until he was indicted. Never gave a damn. You know? You look at Jay-Z's album. I'm not black, I'm O.J. Okay. That was what O.J. said. I ain't black, I'm O.J. Never gave a damn. Never gave a damn about black folks until he was indicted on murder charges. Never gave a damn about black folks until he was ostracized, by and large, by society as a whole. Never gave a damn. And it just amazes me how we would sit up there and I'm looking at it, forget the fact that in memoriam he was celebrated, he was mentioned, what have you. I mean, I'm looking at it from the standpoint, how should the family of Carl Weathers feel? How should the family of Willie Mays feel? How should the family of Bill Cobbs? Y'all don't know about that fabulous actor that he was. Ghost of Mississippi, New Jack City, and a plethora of other films that he was a part of. He was a legendary figure. How's his family supposed to feel when they're mentioned in the same breath as O.J. Simpson? Think about that for a second. This is the BET Awards. I mean, I know that it's no longer owned by Bob Johnson. I get that part. I understand that. I understand that in 2000, all right, I'm just pulling from my notes here to make sure that everybody knows that I kind of know. I'm going to do my research here. Paramount, then Viacom, 2000. They were sold by Bob Johnson for $3 billion. We get all of that. And I'm quite sure, I don't know this definitively, but it stands to reason that black folks ain't running Paramount. But you have black individuals in charge of BET, which is fair, which is the right thing to do. I'm just sitting up here absolutely positively flabbergasted that whether it's Scott Mills, whether it's Connie Orlando, whether it's Jesse Collins or whomever, how do we let that happen? How do we let that happen? And we got to call it like we see it. There's just no reason to celebrate this man. Okay, yeah, he should rest in peace. Sure, we should never talk about him again. Here's the bigger issue. We should never be given a reason to talk about him again. We certainly shouldn't be celebrating O.J. Simpson. I'm sorry. Not when two people were damn near decapitated. And he was the prime suspect. And we know that an overzealous police department effed up the case, which ultimately got him acquitted because he had one of the greatest lawyers this nation has ever known in Johnny Cochran, the late, great Johnny Cochran. OJ never gave a damn. He hung around white people. He lived, that white culture. He didn't give a damn about his own. Ain't nothing wrong with that. You want to go to golf clubs and be members of golf clubs and all this stuff and live a posh, affluent lifestyle? Hell, we all trying to achieve that. I know I am. But what you never hear me say is that I'm not black. I'm Stephen A. Oh, I'm very black. Most of us are, if not all of us. I'm talking about in our spirit and in our soul. It's never something we want to detach ourselves from. That was O.J. Simpson. And when we do shit like this, it stains all of us because we're giving tacit approval for his alleged acts when we shove that aside. This ain't like the jury letting him off in a criminal case where they saw holes in the argument, where they knew the LAPD engaged in unethical behavior. And on top of it all, you had the backdrop of the LAPD and how they were treating citizens in LA at that time and for decades prior to that, which had basically sullied and alienated the black community against LAPD for years. This is not that case. This is the BET Awards. This is a celebration of blackness, of black culture, of black entertainment, of black excellence. And when you do something like this, you got folks outside the community see that shit? TMZ talking about it, NBC talking about it, CNBC talking about it, CBS talking about it, USA Today talking about it, PBS, everybody but PBS. When that kind of stuff happens, how do you think that benefits us? And that's a story that we don't get into nearly as much as we should. Did it ever occur to anybody to remind yourself of the responsibility we have? I'm not blaming any of the folks there in the audience. They didn't know. And even though BET is owned by Paramount, it's still BET. Black folks everywhere, all up in there. And that's what we celebrate. We, as a community, are going to be held accountable for that. Subliminally, subconsciously. People going to look at us with raised eyebrows and think as a community, oh, you down with that? You cool with that? That's what you celebrate. The collective whole is what matters. Not one individual. God rest his soul. God will deal with him because God knows what he did and what he didn't do. It ain't for me to judge or anybody else to judge, but we saw what we saw. The trial was televised. His actions and his dismissiveness and disassociation and distance from the black community was self-inflicted. He created that. He wanted nothing to do with us. Where's this affinity for him? Where's the evidence that he ever gave a shit about us? I just don't understand. And I think that when it comes to something like that, you got to guard against that. I'd love to know if Tia Mowry knew anything about that. Because had that been me, and they asked me to MC that segment, and I saw that OJ was a part of it, I would not have done it. And if I was on that stage and his face popped up, I would have been mic'd up on camera and I would have been like, I don't know whose idea that was, but I don't have anything to do with that. I didn't know. That's what I would have said. Now, everybody ain't me, and I understand that. And I'm not judging in regards to her or anybody else. I'm just saying, come on. Come on. We all suspect we know what he did, but nobody definitively knows what he did but God himself, OJ himself, and of course the souls of Ron Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. So it'll be for God to judge. But I got to tell you, that was a bad look on the part of the BET Awards. It really, really was. Don't get me started with all that twerking and all of that stuff. I had to tell my daughter who was on the phone with me, I made her turn the channel. I'm going to just leave it at that. My teenage daughter, I didn't want her seeing that. All that damn twerking and ass is hanging out and all that. Nah. But this stuff with OJ, it can't get much more classless than that. And by the way, it also begs the question right now. If you're the Oscars, you going to celebrate Woody Allen? What are we going to do if Bill Cosby's name comes up? Eventually. I mean, it begs, Harvey Weinstein, stuff like that with other events. It's going to be interesting to see what other events do. Oscars, Emmys, stuff like that. It's going to be interesting to see what others do. Only last part I would make is this. Was Andre Brower mentioned? I don't recall. If he wasn't, he should have been. And I don't think he was. I didn't see it. How is he not mentioned? Get on the bus along with various other movies he's done over the years. He was another fabulous actor. We got a God who we celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. Who we're willing to celebrate sometimes is a reflection on us more so than it is on those folks. Especially when they're gone and we're still here. Sometimes you really, really needed to let them rest in peace. I'm just saying. Coming up, Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics gets paid. Donovan Mitchell gets paid. And what's Paul George's legacy now that he's left the Clippers? I'll get into all of that and more up next, right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Back with more in a minute. Okay, everybody, you know what time it is. It's time for Stephen A's Weekly Picks. If you are a sports fanatic like me, then you can't just watch the games. You need to be a part of it all. So how do I do that? I play Prize Picks, of course. Prize Picks is a skill-based, real money daily fantasy sports game where you select 2, 3, or even up to 6 players and choose if they'll have more or less than their projected in-game stats. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your picks and puts you right in the middle of the game time action, okay? So pick the stats of all your favorite players, Ohtani, Caitlin Clark, even Cristiano Ronaldo, okay? And if you go to prizepicks.com right now and use promo code SAS, you receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100. Guess what? That ain't no joke, okay? So go to prizepicks.com. Type in my initials SAS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's really that easy. Today, however, I will not be selecting any players or sports. I want to go off topic, okay? July 4th is around the corner, and that means it's time for the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest held every year on July 4th in Coney Island, New York, okay? The reigning king and queen of the mustard yellow belt is a guy named Joey Chestnut, who won his 16th title last year after eating 62 hot dogs and buns in 10 minutes. And Mickey Sudo, who holds the record of 48.5 Nathan's famous hot dogs in 10 minutes, okay? And won her 9th title last year with 39.5 hot dogs and buns eaten. Well, Lord have mercy. I just want to see who's going to take the crown with no Joey Chestnut there. He's not there this year. So I want to see who's going to take the crown since he ain't participating. So today, I'm picking the number of hot dogs eaten at this year's Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest. So let's get right to it. Will reigning women's champ, Mickey Sudo, break last year's record with more or less than 40.5 hot dogs eaten? I'm going with more. Okay, she got more last year. She got more than 40 last year. Why would I not think she's going to get more than 40 this year? I'm going with more. Let's go to the next one. James Webb, more or less than 46.5 hot dogs eaten. I suspect less here. I don't think he's going to get past 45. That's just me, okay? Nick Weary, more or less than 44.5 hot dogs eaten. I'm going to go with less with him, too. I just can't imagine. Lord, and then to see them wet the bun while they eat the hot dog. I like hot dogs, but I like it on a nice toasted bun, not a soggy bun. I don't know how they do it. And by the way, I just don't know how they do it. I'll leave it at that. Last but not least, Gideon Oji, More or less than 37 and a half hot dogs eaten. I was tempted to say more, but for some reason, I suspect less with him too. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with less, okay? So basically, that's it. That's more plus less, and less. That's what I'm going with for this 4th of July. I'm guessing, though, it's hot dogs. I can barely eat 2 a month. I can't imagine somebody eating over 40, so forgive me, will you? Welcome back to Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Let's get to the NBA, y'all, because Jayson Tatum of the Boston Celtics just agreed with the team to a deal yesterday, making him the league's highest paid player. The deal is a 5-year, $314 million extension, which is also the largest in NBA history. Tatum led the Celtics to their 18th NBA title just a few weeks ago, taking down the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games. Both he and Jaylen Brown, who also signed a record deal last summer for about $304 million, form arguably the best wing tandem in the league today. Here's the bottom line. They're champions. And when Jayson Tatum won the championship, that solidified this $314 million, even though he's going to get it anyway. So let's get this out the way. The second Jaylen Brown got $304 million. The only way that Jayson Tatum wasn't going to get his bag and wasn't going to get more than Jaylen Brown is if he had gotten hurt and suffered some catastrophic injury. That was about it. Even with Jaylen Brown and his money, Jayson Tatum was the number 1 option. Jayson Tatum averaged 27 a game. Jayson Tatum led the number 1 team in the NBA all season long. They had the best record in the game, okay? And they were clearly the best team. I don't know why the hell I got caught up in Kyrie and Luka and how they were flowing, but I know why I picked Dallas, because I thought that Porzingis would not be able to play at all in the NBA Finals. I never thought he'd play games 1 and 2. I never thought he'd look the way he looked in game 1, but I digress. At the end of the day, Jayson Tatum is a star in this league. He deserves every penny. And with the climate being what it is, the salary cap elevating to what it has elevated to, with the salaries for NBA players escalating, with cats getting $48 to $50 million and more normally, you can't knock anybody for giving Jayson Tatum this money. He's not even 28. And Jayson Tatum has been in 5 conference finals, 2 NBA finals, and he's now an NBA champion. There's nothing to talk about here. He deserves every freaking penny. And we can't argue with this. And he showed up in the NBA finals too. It was some choke job now. He didn't have great games, 1 and 2, but he showed up in games 3 and 5. I can tell you that much. The brother balled out and did what he needed to do, and he deserves his dollars. This ain't news to me. It's long overdue, and he deserves it. Now it's going to be interesting to see that Embiid and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey are in there. Let's see what happens with that. And let me move on to free agency, where Klay Thompson ended his 13-year historic run with the Golden State Warriors yesterday. Klay agreed to a 3-year, $50 million deal to play with the Mavericks, alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, of course. So it's the end of an era in Golden State where Klay won 4 titles with the Warriors, alongside the greatest shooter guard ever created in Steph Curry, and, of course, the one and only Draymond Green. But this last season was especially tough for Klay, as his relationship with the franchise became strained over his contract discussions. Klay averaged just under 18 points this season, his lowest since his 2nd season with the team. I want to get to Paul George in just a minute, because I wanted to get from Jayson Tatum to Paul George, but I'll get back to that. Let me say this about Klay Thompson. I went back and I looked at some numbers. I'm a huge fan of Klay Thompson. I think he's a future Hall of Famer, first ballot. I think he's one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen in our lifetime, top 5 shooter of all time. I also think that if Klay Thompson hates the media for life, I wouldn't blame him. Because if you remember years ago, when he was not voted on one of the All-NBA teams, if you remember that, right? The media cost Klay Thompson $30 million because Kemba Walker was put on the All-NBA team and Klay Thompson wasn't. And Klay Thompson was furious about that, and he should have been. He should have been. But when you hear about friction between him and the Golden State Warriors, that's clearly Klay Thompson caught up in his feelings. It really, really is. Klay Thompson, under his rookie deal, made about $9 million. He signed a 5-year deal with Golden State thereafter that gave him an additional about $68 million. If you remember, in the 2019 NBA Finals between Golden State and the Toronto Raptors, he tore his ACL. Okay? Was out for the entire season, next season. This was in June. The next season, he was out. I forgot that July, when the Golden State Warriors knew that Klay Thompson would be out for at least an entire year, they still gave him $191 million. And then he tore his Achilles in a pickup game. And was out not just for the 2019-2020 season, but ended up being out for the 2020-2021 season. He got paid $32 and $35 million. He got paid damn near $68 million for not playing a game. So in the world of business, ladies and gentlemen, we can't sit up there and look at a guy who was paid for not playing. They paid you all of these years. There's been slippage in your game to some degree, even though he did shoot 45% from the field and 41% from three-point range and averaging about 20 a game after the All-Star break this past season. We can't sit up there and look at Joe Lacob and the Golden State Warriors and act like they shafted Klay Thompson. They didn't. Klay Thompson, I don't believe he believes that. I think he wants a fresh start. I think he sees Kuminga and Podziemski. He knows that's the direction Steve Kerr wants to go in. He also knows that his playing time is going to be compromised, and he doesn't want that problem. He knows that Dallas needs shooters. So him leaving Golden State should not be that big of a news. Him ending up going to Dallas, that's an obvious choice with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic and what they can do for you, because obviously Derrick Jones is no shooter. Neither is P.J. Washington, even though he can make some threes. And so if you got Klay out there, he opens things up for Kyrie, he opens things up for Luka, plus he opens things up for Gafford and Lively. So it's a good thing. Here's where the story should lie. Why the hell didn't you go to California? Why didn't you stay in California and go to the Lakers? Could it be that he didn't want to go someplace where at least it's perceived that the superstar is picking the coach and the draft picks, a.k.a. J.J. Redick and Bronny James, via LeBron James? Could that be the case? Could that be that Klay Thompson didn't want to be in that predicament? Or could it be the fact that Golden State, obviously they consider the Lakers a rivalry. They want supremacy within the state of California, and Klay didn't want to do that to them. I don't know the answer to that question. I just know it's legitimate that LeBron James is willing to take a pay cut. And nobody that he wanted came. James Harden stayed with the Clippers. Klay Thompson went to Dallas. How come the Los Angeles Lakers, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis to a lesser degree, couldn't get somebody to come to L.A.? I'm just asking. Let me switch back to the Eastern Conference, because of the Philadelphia 76ers are, they're now considered arguably the biggest threat to the Boston Celtics after acquiring Paul George. All-Star forward leaves the Clippers after 5 seasons and 3 playoff appearances where he couldn't get L.A. past the second round of the playoffs, even though I say it's Kawhi Leonard that couldn't get them past the playoffs, by the way. But now Paul George joins Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey as the Sixers look to dethrone the Celtics. It's simple for me. I think it's a perfect fit for Paul George. It's a perfect fit for the Philadelphia 76ers. I do think this move elevates the 76ers above the New York Knicks as being the #1 threat to the Boston Celtics. But I also don't believe we should stop there. We have an obligation to talk about Paul George, who I love, not just as a player, but as a guy. I think he's one of the nicest people on the planet. Loved working with him, by the way, during the NBA Finals. Enjoyed that. Here's the deal. Paul George has missed 33% of his game in the Clippers uniform. Paul George is one of the longest tenured players to have never played in an NBA Finals. Paul George is also an individual that has averaged about 47 games a year up until this last season, when I believe he played about 74. All right, he played 74 games this past season. First 4 seasons in Los Angeles averaged 47.3 games per season. And by the way, the Clippers have not won a playoff series since reaching the 2021 conference finals. So even though I was on the record saying that Daryl Morey has the most pressure on him to make sure you field a roster that can produce results to knock off the Boston Celtics, make no mistake about it, I did not mean to imply that there is no pressure on Paul George. We saw one of the reasons the Sixers didn't achieve is because of Tobias Harris, not his game. Because I believe Tobias Harris has game. The problem with Tobias Harris is that he wasn't aggressive. He wasn't assertive. And he didn't step his foot forward and be that aggressive individual that you needed him to be to take some of the load off of Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. That was the problem with Tobias Harris. And when you consider the fact that the Sixers were willing to let Jimmy Butler walk out the door in order to retain Tobias Harris, that makes it even worse that he wasn't willing to step up. Paul George doesn't have that problem. 22 points a game, 47% shooting from the field, which was a career high, 41.3% shooting from three-point range, which was a career high, over 90% shooting from the free throw line, which is 90.7 to be exact, which was also all a career high. Paul George can be that dude because we know what he brings defensively. And now you're talking about him having the ability to defend a Jaylen Brown or to defend a Jayson Tatum. That's going to only help the Philadelphia 76ers. What that means is that Paul George has to bring the kind of game we know he's capable of bringing in order to help the Sixers get over the hump. He is not devoid of pressure. And I did not mean to imply that he was. I just feel more is on Daryl Morey because you still need a couple of other pieces. But Paul George has to step up and get it done. It's just that simple. So I just wanted to make sure that I said that and got that out the way before anybody convoluted or misconstrued my position. By the way, as an aside, let me not forget to mention Donovan Mitchell. He signed 3 years over $150 million. He's going to get about $50 million a year from the Cleveland Cavaliers. This means nothing to me. Donovan Mitchell deserves the money. I personally don't believe that's someplace he wants to stay. He's just making sure he gets his money first. He could always ask out later. And if you're the New York Knicks or anybody else, you might have some tradable assets. I love Donovan Mitchell. I think he's the #1 offensive scoring option. I think he's a star in this league. I think he's good for 25 a night. He is no joke. He is worth the bag, no doubt. I just don't see him staying in Cleveland. I know he just signed. I know he's committed there, but they all do, just to make sure they get their money. And then after that, they ask out. So I still think that next season will be Donovan Mitchell's last in Cleveland, but that's just me. That's just where I'm coming from. But I'm happy for him. Good guy, star player, deserves his bag. Coming up, did the Supreme Court hand former President Donald Trump a victory with its ruling yesterday? I'll get into that right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show over the digital airways of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Back with more in a minute before I close out the show. Everyone knows I demand excellence, and I'm in it to win it. So that's why I've teamed with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, to help turn my sports knowledge into some big-time money. In case you already didn't know, Prize Picks is a daily fantasy app where you choose 2, 3, or even up to 6 of your favorite players and then simply pick more or less on their projected stats. It honestly takes less time than it does for Asia Wilson to dribble up the court and hit that long-range game-winning three-point shot. Every basket, every strikeout, every goal gets bigger each and every single week. So download the PrizePicks app today and join a community of more than 3 million members. And if you do, PrizePicks will match your first-time deposit of up to $100. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. So go to prizepicks.com right now and use code SAS. My initials, of course, in case you didn't figure that out. Just use promo code SAS on PrizePicks to receive a first deposit match of up to $100, and then let the games begin. PrizePicks. Pick more. Pick less. It's really that easy. Some people, not all, but some people think just putting some money aside is enough to save. Why? When you can do more with it? Not letting your money sit and collect dust. That's real saving. If you could deposit your paycheck on Cash App at no cost and watch your money grow, would you? I'm talking about collecting up to 4.5% interest on your cash. Cash App is offering high yield savings. It pays to get paid on Cash App. Deposit your paycheck on Cash App, and you can earn a high yield at no cost. Here's the list of no-cost things provided by Cash App. Interest on your account, 4.5 interest paycheck deposit. Now that's something to think about. Cash App allows you to deposit your paycheck on Cash App and watch your money grow. Stop sitting on the bench with people who can't play and get into the savings game with Cash App. Deposit your paycheck on Cash App, and you're not paying a cent in fees on your savings to watch your money grow and grow and grow. That's money, y'all. That's Cash App. Download Cash App from App Store or Google Play Store today. Welcome back to the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and, of course, iHeartRadio. Moving on to politics, where yesterday the Supreme Court issued a ruling in favor of former President Donald Trump on the issue of presidential immunity. For the first time in the history of the High Court, it ruled that presidents can never be prosecuted for acts within their core constitutional duties. In addition to that, the Supreme Court says presidents are presumed to be immune from prosecution for most of their official actions. President Biden responded, saying the conservative majority on the court has set a dangerous precedent. He added, quote, any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing for the aforementioned conservative majority, said a former president has, quote, absolute immunity, end quote, for acts within his conclusive and preclusive constitutional authority. The decision leaves it to the lower courts to determine if most of the criminal acts Trump was accused of in the wake of the January 6th indictment are official or not. The ruling all but guarantees the case will not go to trial before the November 5th election. Are we surprised? Are we really, really surprised? But before I even get into all of that, let me say this, because as it regards Donald Trump, he posted on social media, because you know he always has something to say the minute he thinks anything works in his favor. Within minutes of the ruling, he said this: big win for our Constitution and democracy. Proud to be an American. That's what he said. No surprise there. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, a Democrat out of New York, in a statement reacting to the ruling, said House Democrats, quote, will engage in aggressive oversight and legislative activity to ensure that the extreme far-right justices in the majority are brought into compliance with the Constitution. You see, let me try to be a little delicate here. I could say I told you so, but I won't. We're trying to act like the president is a normal person, that have normal rules and regulations and laws applicable to them just like everybody else. That's what we want to believe, okay? That's what we want to believe. Let me throw out a bunch of rhetorical questions for y'all. Do you, as an American citizen, just an ordinary American citizen, have the right to declare war on a nation? Do you have the right to do that? Do you have a right to withhold weapons to another power, another country, because you don't like how they're conducting their own war? Do you have the right to do most of these things that presidents can do, like signing stuff into law after Congress and Senate brings it to his desk? You have the right to do that? You know the answer to that question. Why are we acting like we don't know? The key to the ruling, as far as I'm concerned, by the 6 conservative justices, is they were basically talking about his actions as a president. He has the right to talk to the attorney general about whatever's going on. He has a right, you understand, if he wants to declare war about somebody without worrying about being prosecuted. Because if you're going to get prosecuted for something, that might influence your decision to be the commander-in-chief. And they're taking that into consideration. But rather than get into the technical mumbo-jumbo of all of this other stuff, It shows the damage when we've allowed ourselves to politicize our courts. I've always been in opposition towards the president or any administration picking Supreme Court justices. I think Supreme Court justices should have term limits. I don't think they should be allowed to stay in office for the remainder of their natural lives or until they retire. I think you should have maximum 20-year window as a Supreme Court justice. Every 20 years, there should be somebody else up in there by law. That's what I think. I don't believe it should be selected by either party. I think folks who are involved in the law, I'm not talking about a legislative body, I'm not talking about the House of Congress, I'm not talking about the Senate, I'm talking about separate and apart from them. Someone associated with the judiciary should be deciding who Supreme Court justices are. And it shouldn't be based on party affiliations. It shouldn't be conservative or liberal. That's my personal opinion. But rather than get into all of that, let me just say this. It's no surprise. It's no surprise. And when you see Biden going off and you see Hakeem Jeffries taking the position that he had, would he have said that had the ruling been in the favor of liberals? That's why we have to take it with a grain of salt. We can't trust any of them. Would you have said that if the ruling had leaned toward the liberal side? We know what Sonia Sotomayor said in her dissent. We know what Ketanji Brown Jackson said in her dissent. We get that. They're liberals and they feel a certain way. You're conservatives, you feel a certain way. You're conservative, you don't have any problem with this ruling for the most part. Well, if you're the liberal side, excuse me, what level of culpability are you willing to embrace because of this? Because this is the real reason I brought up the subject. You understand, ladies and gentlemen, that the Democrats are making the same mistake that they made with Ruth Bader Ginsburg? Now, I understand that Areva Martin, political analyst and what have you, I love her. I love her being on the show. I understand what she said yesterday when I asked this question about Bill Maher calling President Biden Ruth Bader Biden. She said there was no correlation. I beg to differ. I emphatically disagree with her. Let me remind y'all and rewind the clock. It's 2015, approaching 2016. Barack Obama is in office. The Obama administration desperately wants Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who had health issues, by the way, God rest her soul. But she had health issues at the time. They desperately wanted her to retire so they could elect or select her successor for the Supreme Court. She refused. Why did she refuse to step down? Because according to numerous reports, she swore up and down Hillary Rodham Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump in the election. And she wanted Hillary Rodham Clinton, the first woman's president in the United States of America, had that happened. She wanted her to be able to select Ruth Bader Ginsburg's successor. And what happened? Hillary Rodham Clinton lost the election. Donald Trump won. Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't step down. So years later, while Donald Trump was in office, she passed away, God rest her soul. And because she passed away, Donald Trump was able to select her successor and two other justices. And as a result, instead of the majority being 5-4, because that's what it would have been had Ruth Bader Ginsburg stepped down and Barack Obama selected her successor, the court is now 6-3. What's happening right now? Biden shows up on the debate stage after months and months and months of scrutiny about his cognitive decline and what have you, agreeing to a presidential debate that has never really been this early. We usually see that after the Democratic or the Republican national conventions. He goes and he engages in a debate prior to all of that, clearly to prove a point, and ended up putting forth an absolute disastrous performance to the point where the New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the New Yorker magazine, along with various other folks within the Democratic Party and what have you, calling for him to step down and step aside so a Kamala Harris, a Wes Moore, a Gavin Newsom, or somebody can step in and go for the Democratic nomination to win the presidency of the United States of America. That is what is happening. How do we not see the correlation? Ruth Bader Ginsburg refuses to step aside. President Biden refuses to step aside. The Democrats go for it. It cost them a Supreme Court justice seat. The Democrats are going for this now. It may cost them the presidency. How do we not see the correlation? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm just talking about it. I'm asking you. I'm not even taking any hard and fast stances. If I have some definitive answer because I'm some aficionado. No, I'm an American citizen who pays attention and votes. That's what I do. And I encourage you to go to the polls and vote, no matter which side you're voting for. Go to the polls, make your voice heard. Don't sit up there and be silent. Don't be a participant in the process. Barack Obama said it during his speech during the Democratic National Convention in 2016. You got to get in it. You got to be a participant. You can't just sit on the sidelines. This ain't about yes, he will. It's about yes, we can. Remember all of that? Well, you need participation in order for that to happen. And also, you need sense. Like common sense, like paying attention and seeing the tea leaves and understanding what's going on here. This does correlate. Biden's refusal to step aside does correlate with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And in that instance, it cost you a seat on the courts for the Supreme Court. And we see what has transpired since then. Roe v. Wade, along with various other things. Again, I'm not taking sides. I'm just telling you what the facts are. And so now here we are again. And what we got is a situation where we got to look at it. And it's like, listen, this is what it's going to come down to. It's going to cost you the presidency. And why is it going to cost you the presidency? Because you want to stay the course. When staying the course has clearly worked against you in the recent past. You're going to do it again? You're going to do it again. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Let me get to my tweets before I get on out of here for the day, please. Let's see what tweets we got coming up here because I want to see what people have got to say. At JustKenny81 writes, Stephen A. Smith, is it time for Jeannie Buss to relieve Rob of his duties and give Bob Myers a shot? What I'm going to say to you is that's a damn good question. Bob Myers went to UCLA. He lives in California. He's a native there. And he's an elite executive who has 4 championships on his resume. Kind of knows what he's doing. I watched Rob Pelinka miss out on getting Ty Lue. I watched Rob Pelinka hire Frank Vogel, and then he's gone. I watched him hire Darvin Ham, and then he's gone in 2 years. Now he's hired J.J. Redick. I'm looking at the roster. You're at the mercy of LeBron James, no matter how LeBron James tries to deny it. I'm not saying that he's making choices or whatever, but this notion that he has nothing to do with the decisions that the Lakers make is a damn lie. Nobody believes that. Nobody. So I don't want to say it's time for Bob Myers to replace Rob Pelinka, but I will say Rob Pelinka's on the clock. And he's got things to prove because if it's not good enough for Frank Vogel to win the championship and keep his job, if it's not good enough, even though he didn't want Russell Westbrook and others didn't want Russell Westbrook then. I'm not talking about the Russell Westbrook with the Clippers because I think he's been fabulous. I'm talking about the Russell Westbrook that had a disastrous stay with the Lakers. But Rob Pelinka made that happen, right? Because LeBron James wanted him to. If Frank Vogel couldn't keep his job and Darvin Ham takes you to the Western Conference Finals his rookie year and then the second year he loses to the reigning defending champions at that time in 5 games, if he can't keep his job, well, how many coaches are we going to get rid of before we looking at Rob Pelinka? So, again, I'm not advocating for his dismissal by any stretch. But if I got a guy like Bob Myers out there, it is legitimate to simply ask the question, how long do you keep him on the sidelines when you'd have an opportunity to have him? How long do you do that? Sometimes it ain't about the other person doing a bad job. It's about knowing what a great job this person can do because they've already done it. That's all I'm saying. We'll see what happens. Next tweet. What do you got for me? Show me what you got. Let's see it here. At Ben Affleck. Stephen A. Smith, what's one piece of financial advice you wish someone told you? I've always been told to save and invest my money. But I also think that when I think about financial advice, understanding risk that you want to take. Risk for everybody else is different. Some people are renegades and they want to put it all on the line. I'm one of those guys. I'm relatively conservative in my approach. I will take risk with anything that doesn't risk my quality of life. So if I have a base number that I'm able to say this will help maintain and sustain my quality of life, then I'm all for taking chances, right up until that quality of life is in danger of being compromised. At that particular moment, I get conservative, and I'm just not going to let that happen. And so for me, that's how I look at it. Of course you should save. Of course you should have a nest egg. In a perfect world, you should have 6 months' salary in your bank account. In the event that you can't afford, you're not making any money, you're unemployed or whatever, you've been compromised. A 6-month nest egg for you to sustain your quality of life. That is good. Exceedingly good as if it's at least a year, because it buys you time to go out there and get an additional opportunity before your stuff starts getting diluted. But also, the biggest thing is don't live beyond your means. That's the biggest thing. You can buy whatever you want to buy. You can do whatever you want to do, but make sure it's within your means. Don't spend excessively where you live in check to check because you can't stop spending. When you do that, you have no discipline, and inevitably you will fall because your habits are not good. And that's what you have to remember. Do we have any more tweets? Any more tweets right here? 2 more to go before I get on out of here. At MN 2024 Wolves, Stephen A. Smith, if the early bird gets the worm, why do they tell you that good things come to those who wait? Because patience is a virtue, and all that glitters ain't gold. Yeah, the early bird gets the worm. Fine, I got all of that. But you didn't bring up the aftermath of all of that. How it feels once it got the worm. How the worm makes it feel. Did it satiate? Did it please you as much as you thought it would be? Was it as fulfilling, etc.? That's not to say you wait forever, but patience is called upon by the wise far more often than not. And so that's the way that I look at it. That would be my answer to that question. Last tweet here. What you got? At Gerald_Montfort. Stephen A. Smith, what would be Golden State Warriors title chances if they land a big-time player like Lauri Markkanen? Well, that depends on who they would have to give up. Lauri Markkanen can ball. I like him a lot. And with Steph Curry there, they would be special. And Draymond Green and his defensive prowess, they would be special. Kuminga and Podziemski there, sure. But chances are you'd have to give up something to get him, and what you're going to give up, because it'd have to be a lot. So you got to pay attention to that. Plus, I personally believe Golden State didn't have a chance against the likes of the Denvers of the world, the Boston Celtics of the world, and others because size matters. And I think they need a big so Draymond can do all the things that he does without having to guard centers and without having to preoccupy himself energy-wise with people so much bigger than him. If you remember, when the Warriors were winning championships, you had Andrew Bogut in the middle, you had Zsa Pachulia in the middle, you had big bodies to throw out there, so Draymond didn't have to spend so much time flexing against these brothers. That's what you need. You need some girth. I think Golden State has the greatest shooter God has ever created in Steph Curry. I think they have a multitude of players on their squad who can really, really ball. I think they have athleticism. I think they have talent. They clearly have exceptional coaching. And I think the combination of all of those things, they just need girth. And if they have girth, I think they'll be just fine. That's the answer to my question. I think they need that more than they need a Lauri Markkanen. But I get where you're coming from because he can play, and he would complement them very, very well. That's it for this edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show. I want you all to make sure you enjoy your 4th of July and beyond. I'll be with you later on this week. Enjoy your time with your family, your friends, your loved ones. We only live once, y'all. Live it up. Have a good time. Smile, laugh, enjoy your time with loved ones, people that you care about and you know care about you. Okay? Don't have a bunch of phony-ass people around you smiling in your face, but stabbing you in the back any chance they get. You don't need people like that in your life, especially around 4th of July. That's about the coming together, loved ones, friends, families, and everything in between. That's what you should be thinking about. That's what you should be doing, okay, in case you didn't know. I got to get on out of here. I'm going to enjoy my 4th of July. I hope that you all do the same. I'll be back with you on Friday, this Friday, with the Stephen A. Smith Show right here over the digital airwaves of YouTube and iHeartRadio. Until then, peace and love, everybody.